In his speech before the Disabled American Veterans National Convention in Atlanta Monday, President Obama paid tribute to the U.S. soldiers who've served in Iraq.
And as we mark the end of America's combat mission in Iraq, a grateful America must pay tribute to all who served there. Remember, our nation has had vigorous debates about the Iraq War. There are patriots who supported going to war and patriots who opposed it. But there has never been any daylight between us when it comes to supporting the more than 1 million Americans in uniform who have served in Iraq.
President Obama might have added, unless you're gay. Today we speak with Lieutenant Dan Choi. He was just discharged under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Dan Choi is a graduate of West Point, an infantry platoon leader in the New York National Guard, a trained Arabic linguist who served in Iraq. Exactly the kind of soldier Obama referred to in his speech. But Dan Choi was honorably discharged from the military 2 weeks ago for publicly admitting he's gay. Choi has been one of the most vocal critics of the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. He came out on national television on The Rachel Maddow Show in March of 2009. He was dismissed by the Army in May of that year. Then a few weeks ago, he received his final discharge papers. At the Netroots Nation conference in Las Vegas last weekend, where thousands of bloggers, activists, journalists were, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid was forced to address Lieutenant Choi's discharge after he was handed Choi's West Point ring and discharge papers by the moderator, Joan McCarter, on stage.
This morning, Dan Choi gave me this to give to you. That's his West Point ring. He says it doesn't mean what it did mean to him anymore. And this is his discharge. So, hopefully you can take that with you.
Well, let me just,
you can use that, hopefully.
I just want to say about the ring. My son, my youngest boy, played on 3 national championship teams at the University of Virginia, soccer champions. And he gave me one of those rings. And I love that ring. That was terrific. But I didn't earn the ring. My son gave it to me. He earned this ring. And I'm going to give it back to him. I don't need his ring to fulfill the promise that I made to him.
Thank you. When it's signed, Senator, when it's signed.
That's good enough with me. When the bill's signed, I'll keep it safely and give it back to him. Okay?
Senator.
Oh, damn. When we get it passed, you'll take it back, right?
I sure will, but I'm going to hold you accountable.
Okay, that's good.
That's Dan Choi telling Senator Harry Reid on stage he's going to hold him accountable for changing the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Then they hugged. Well, I caught up with Lieutenant Dan Choi just before that event earlier at the Netroots Nation conference, just after he had found out about his discharge from the military. Lieutenant Dan Choi, welcome to Democracy Now!
It's feel great to be with you again.
What are you looking at?
This is actually the email that I got yesterday morning notifying me of my discharge orders. And this memo was actually sent to my dad, whom I am not speaking with right now. And I haven't had any communication with him since October, so it was difficult to hear that they were using my dad as a conduit, saying that he signed for my paperwork. It's difficult when you come out all at once to your parents and your church and your work, your colleagues and the Army and the government and Amy Goodman. You know, it's all very difficult. And it reminded me that I haven't really done everything to hold my parents' hand through this. started the journey because of my parents. And after Prop 8 passed in California, I felt I needed to do something as well. And I said I was just going to educate my parents about discrimination and about who I am and tell them the truth. And that's how it all got started. I lived with them for 6 months, but it didn't really go anywhere, and we left on very bad terms. I decided to devote fully to the movement, to help build the movement, to help repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and full equality. And that took up my entire time. And I've not been able to tend to what my parents were also going through. And the fact that it went to my dad, and for 3 weeks it sat, well, apparently, according to the Army, he signed for the papers and never notified me, never gave it to me. So,
how did you end up getting your discharge?
Well, people were rumoring about it a day before and telling me that I've been discharged. Why aren't you coming out with it? And I said, well, I haven't gotten any papers yet. So my commander gave me a call yesterday morning at about 10:30. I was right here at Netroots Nation. I was not expecting to have to do this and deal with the discharge, but my commander, who's been absolutely professional and absolutely sympathetic as well as caring on a personal level throughout this entire journey, he said, this isn't news that you wanted to hear for sure, but you are formally discharged, and I will forward you the memo. It was something I was expecting, but the pain and the emotion, you can never fully prepare yourself for that. Immediately when he said that, I thought about every moment of my service from the time I was 18 years old and I went to West Point, and the friends that I made, the training, preparing for deployment, going to deployment, the Iraqi friends that I continue to contact and connect with and communicate with, all of the many things that I learned in my times in service, what that all meant, and especially this year of activism, I've learned a lot about what service really, really means and why we volunteer to begin with, why we put others before ourselves. And I have no resentment, I have no regret. To anybody in the military, this is clearly a failure of our government. We all know that America's promises are not manifest yet, so long as gay or transgender people are getting kicked out of their workplaces, fired for telling the truth or expressing who they are. And that part of my commitment that I learned my first days at West Point and from the early days growing up in my parents' house, telling the truth and having integrity, never being ashamed of who you are, having that conviction that you are on the right path to helping other people. That oath and that foundation does not change. I might not have a uniform to wear to drill anymore, and I might not have a commission anymore, but I still have a responsibility. I still have an obligation. It's what we all signed up to do, to protect our Constitution. And I believe that with discrimination rampant right now against gay and transgender people, our Constitution is under attack.
How does it feel to be discharged in the midst of troops throughout the country being surveyed on changing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and President Obama himself expressing his desire to change this policy?
I think it's absolutely insulting that we're having a survey right now, this day and age, that the Commander-in-Chief, who is the first racial minority to achieve that rank and that position, and it was a signifying moment for all of us who, whether we're racial minorities, whether we're sexual minorities, whether we are American citizens or not even yet American citizens. It was an absolute moment of vindication for a lot of people that the first African American and interracial American is the president and the commander-in-chief. And the fact that we're having a survey that harkens back to the times of segregation and the times of absolute racism